The story of modern AI is all about speed, and it really kicks into high gear with a single moment of, well, fear.
So that model was called GPT-2, and at the time, it felt like science fiction. But by today's standards, honestly, it's pretty basic.
Okay, hold on. So what on earth happened in just a few years? How did we leap from one dangerous model to having AI in our pockets that can write code, analyze photos, and hold a conversation?
That's the story we're going to tell. Every major AI model, who made it, and why it was a game changer.
All right, so where does it all begin? You have to trace everything back to one single revolutionary idea from a research paper. It really is the engine that powers everything we see today.
It's all about the transformer. It came out of a 2017 Google paper with the perfect title, Attention is All You Need. See, before this, AI just couldn't get context. The word bank next to river looked exactly the same as bank next to money.
And the transformer actually fixed that?
Totally. It let the model pay attention to the words around it to figure out the real meaning. It was the fundamental breakthrough. And as soon as that engine existed, the race was on. In 2018, OpenAI gives us GPT-1. For the first time, a model could spit out a few coherent paragraphs. And in the very same year, Google drops BERT, which was a genius at understanding language because it could read a sentence both forwards and backwards. BERT basically ran Google search for years.
So right from the jump, there were these two different approaches. GPT was all about generating new stuff, and BERT was about understanding the stuff that's already there. Exactly. Which brings us right back to GPT-2 in 2019. It was 10 times bigger than the first one, and so good at writing that, yeah, OpenAI actually held back the full release because they were worried about how it could be misused. That's the one they called too dangerous.
So when did the game really change and things got huge? This is the era when the industry got locked into an arms race. And the driving philosophy was incredibly simple. Bigger is always better. Just look at this chart. It's insane. In 2020, OpenAI unleashes GPT-3 with 175 billion parameters. That's more than 100 times bigger than GPT-2. It could do things it was never even trained on. Then Google answers with its PaLM model, scaling up to over 500 billion parameters, which made it incredible at reasoning.
Wow. That's not just a step up, that's a whole different staircase.
And for a while, everyone just assumed that was the only path forward.
Until it wasn't?
Until DeepMind published the Chinchilla Paper in 2022. And it basically revealed the industry's big secret. These massive models were all being undertrained. The real key wasn't just making the models bigger, it was about feeding them way more data for the size they already were. And that idea just completely reset everyone's assumptions.
And that's when Meta jumped into the fray, right?
Right, with LLaMA. It was smaller, way more efficient, and it was built on that Chinchilla insight. But the most important part, they made its weights, the model's brain, basically, available to researchers. All of a sudden, you didn't have to be at Google or OpenAI to play with a cutting-edge model. Open source had officially entered the chat.
Okay, so up to this point, it's all still kind of a thing for researchers and developers. When did this stuff finally break out and become something my mom's heard of?
It really happened on one specific day. One launch changed everything.
November 30th, 2022. OpenAI launches ChatGPT. It got to 1 million users in 5 days, 100 million users in 2 months. It became the fastest growing consumer product in history.
Those numbers still don't feel real. It was just everywhere, overnight.
But here's the crazy part. ChatGPT wasn't a brand new model from the ground up. It was running on an upgraded version of GPT-3. The real magic was a new training method called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. Basically, they had tons of people rank the AI's answers, teaching it not just to be smart, but to be helpful, to be safe, to be conversational. The underlying engine didn't change, but how it was fine-tuned changed everything.
So it turns out that making the AI aligned with what humans actually find useful is just as critical as how big and powerful it is.
That one idea defined this entire era of AI.
And right after ChatGPT, the floodgates just blew open. In 2023, we got GPT-4, which could see images and was so smart it passed the bar exam in the top 10%. Anthropic launched Claude with a huge focus on AI safety. And then Google dropped its first Gemini model. On the open source side, Meta released LLaMA 2, this time with a license for businesses to use. And then this tiny startup Mistral came out of nowhere with a small model that punched way above its weight. The whole scene just exploded. Yep, all of that happened in about 1.5 years.
So that brings us to, well, right now. What defines the cutting edge today?
The pace has not slowed down one bit. It's a battle being fought on three main fronts: making models that can see and hear, giving them much better reasoning skills, and making them incredibly efficient.
So walk me through the big players on the field right now. Okay, you've got OpenAI's GPT-4o. The O is for Omni, which handles voice, vision, and text in real time. It feels like you're talking to something straight out of a movie. Then there's Anthropic's Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is an absolute beast for coding and complex logic. We also saw a super powerful open weights model called DeepSeek R1 come out of China, but Google's Gemini 1.5 Pro, it introduced something just wild.
A 1 million token context window. Now, that number is basically how much information the model can hold in its short-term memory at one time. And 1 million, that's a total game changer. Whoa, 1 million tokens. To put that in perspective for people, that's like feeding the AI all 7 Harry Potter books and then doing it 2 more times. Pretty much. You can throw entire code bases at it, hours of video, massive legal documents, all in one shot. And that's where we are today. We went from a single theory in a paper to a model that was called too dangerous, to AIs that can basically read a whole library in an instant. The pace of this is just hard to even comprehend. Which really leaves us with just one final mind-bending question. It took just 5 years to go from an AI that was considered too dangerous for the public to having systems that are thousands of times more powerful sitting in our pockets. If that's what the last 5 years looked like, what on earth are the next 5 going to bring?